You just call to order and stand for the pledge.
I'd like to call to order our meeting of the Troy Board of Education this evening, Monday, February 10th.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Rice?
Mrs. Borchers? Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Fox?
Here.
Mrs. Haggard?
Here.
Mr. Raddick?
Here.
Next will presentations from board committees. Mrs. Borchers is not here, so we don't have an update on Hayner.
I'm on the Hannah board now.
Are you on the Hayner board now?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
I was at my first meeting last month, and it was very enjoyable, pleasant board. Very nice people.
Just like this one,
Yeah.
right?
Just like this one. Just like this one. But it was very brief. They typically are, and it was a half an hour overview. Just essentially, they're having a Valentine's Day fundraiser. They do a lot of trips, those plan, and they sell out very quickly. And I did print out a calendar of events for the Hayner Culture Center for January through June. So, I mean, I can pass these out to you guys over there. You can take a look at them. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of new business. Oh, and the Young Art Awards are coming up. The Masters are coming up. So those will be on display if they're not already.
No, I think that starts right at the end of this month, the 20.
It should say on here probably.
Is Mr. Matthews?
Young Masters, April 28th through April 20th.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, February 28th through April 20th.
Coming up, but.
Yes, the end of the month. So, there you go.
Thank you.
If anybody wants a copy of them.
Yeah, I think like the reception for like the parents.
Mhm.
All that is the.
Yep. That's it.
Mr. Fox? Upper Valley?
Yeah, Upper Valley. We've got two new board members this year. Carrie Murphy from Covington and Kelly McMacken from Piqua. Both are fulfilling the remaining 1 year on terms from previous board members who resigned in the middle of their 3-year terms. So they're both on each of those boards, school boards that they are representing as well. And I think they intend to continue after this year as well. A couple updates on the 50th anniversary that we have celebrating throughout this year. The 2025 year is Distinguished Alumni event is March 20th at the Career Center. The first week of school, they're going to have a big back-to-school block party celebrating it, some open house tour things. And then in December will also be a big open house for the kickoff of the new buildings that we have. They should be done by December, so that's typically when they have open house for the sophomores to go up there and explore the Career Center. But then with the new buildings, they're going to have some additional things going on. Then with like the governor, people from the state house will come in as well. So that'll be in December. The exact date's not set on that yet. And then some Troy news. Our Troy Junior High team won the robotic design contest at Wright State last month. So congratulations to them.
Thank you. Moving on, we have some guests here today from Hook Elementary.
Mrs. Johnson, you want to make introductions? Or introduce someone who will make introductions, or however you want to do it?
Yes, I'm gonna run the show.
Okay.
Not the show. I'm Judy Johnson, the principal at Hook Elementary, and we have Mr. Gustin here with our Hook Student Council. So let's go all the way down so they can hear you.
You feel free, yep, whatever you need to do.
You good?
Go ahead. You're good. You guys can start.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm the head treasurer of Student Council, and I help count money. I'm Liam Bucher. I'm the treasurer of Student Council, and I also help count money. I'm Abram. I'm the other treasurer of Student Council, and I also of Student Council. I'm Allie and I'm on the Student Council. Hi, I'm Stephen and I'm a part of Student Council. We have meetings every week unless there's an event. We usually have meetings per month. Student Council openly closes the student store each morning.
This gives student council members a chance to sell school supplies and lets younger kids have a chance to use their money and learn how to be responsible.
Student Council hosted a food drive for 1 month and the kids bring food. We help feed several families and donate food to the food pantry. For Valentine's Day, we are selling carnations to all of us. Student Council purchases carnations for each student at our school in honor of Kindness Month.
Student council hosts a Valentine's breakfast for all the students and we all dress up for the Valentine's breakfast.
In school, there's lots of responsibilities. One of our responsibilities is making sure everybody are good role models.
Student council members are role models and people that younger students look up to.
Thank you all for inviting us. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you all for sharing that with us. So all of your fundraisers through the year, does that help you purchase? What does that help you purchase? Go ahead.
It helps us with future events and future projects for our school.
Okay. Do you guys have anything for them?
No, I think it's pretty cool that you have 3 treasurers. It must mean you guys get a lot of money coming in. So that's good.
You would see the condition of the money that we do get from little kids who are all balled up or whatever. Several coin collections showed up at our school. There's a real need.
Well, I would like to talk to, you said that you're the sergeant in arms. So are you planning on replacing Mr. Piper's position when someone gets out of line?
Are you all 5th graders? I apologize, Mr. Reddick.
And I was going to ask too, for the sergeant of arms, without getting specific, have you ever had to wield your power? No, that's good. That's good.
Can
How
someone?
do you guys get elected? Tell them how you get elected.
Each student makes a slideshow and presents it in front of all of 5th grade, and we take a vote, and whoever gets the most votes gets elected.
We also all made sure that we didn't vote all of our friends and we voted people who we thought would be best for student council. Who would be the best vote.
How were your positions assigned, like vice president, sergeant at arms, treasurer? Go ahead.
We also take votes on that. We took votes on who.
Okay.
What leadership opportunities has this given me?
Yeah.
Being just able to, leadership, being able to lead the food drive and all these activities, and also organizing all the food on the food drive shelves.
They probably fed.
Could you go back to that slide? Could you?
Yeah, sure. They probably fed 10 to 15 families at the holidays, plus provided food for the food pantry. Let's see, it's right here.
I was going to ask about that. It looked like a lot.
It is a lot of food. The whole hallway, and they organize it by the product, and then it comes all the way into the nurses' station. It's so much food.
Wow.
Do you guys know how many items you collected over that drive? Any idea? Just out of curiosity. I know it's a lot. Okay, all right. I was just curious.
What you see there is probably only a quarter because we restock it every day. So as they use it, so we have another storage room that we keep stuff in, so that it is neat and orderly to be able to grab something. I think that also we allowed to talk about Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay. Our school provides gifts both. And council's not involved with this. We try to make this very private for the families, but gifts, needs and wants for about 40 of our students. So the same families that come in for those gifts go through the food pantry, and it's just an awesome experience for them.
Does every elementary school do this or just Hook?
I'm not sure.
I think most of them, if not all, do.
Yeah.
They all do? Okay.
Do you guys have a list of recommendations you had ready for Mrs. Johnson about how to make the school better and that kind of stuff? Are you guys working on that?
They actually have a lot of good ideas along that
Uh-huh.
line. It's just hard to implement everything.
They have pages of ideas.
I'm sure that's not the problem.
It's a great group. They work really hard. They're there every morning. You can rely on them to open that student store. I mean, it's totally student run. And the carnations too, that they're selling right now. But they have a gift for you guys. Okay.
Oh, for me?
Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you,
Nice.
dear.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank you,
nice.
everyone. Thank you all.
Do you want to ask them to introduce who brought them?
Thank you for coming tonight. We know you can't drive yet. I'm guessing you can't drive yet. So could you introduce who came with you this evening? If you guys
What
just
is-
want to go down.
Yeah, we'll just start with Nick, like you started before. Go ahead, Nick.
I'm Nick and I'm the treasurer's with
And
Who'd you bring?
with
Who'd you
Nick?
bring?
Who came with you tonight? Could you point them out to us so we can wave to them? What's his name? What's his name?
Hi, Larry.
my mom and dad brought me. My mom and dad brought me.
Are they in the room?
My sister.
Abram has a special ed. His dad is also a principal at.
Yeah.
That's why you're being so quiet.
My mom, grandma, grandpa.
What?
My mom, my dad, and my
Oh,
My mom and dad. My mom and my sister. My mom.
Hello.
My dad.
Thank you so much. You are more than welcome to stay for the rest of this meeting. You do not have to. And we would happily understand if you don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you so much. You guys are doing a great job for your school.
It's a great job. They're very well prepared.
Student council.
Let's keep till Valentine's Day, you think? Can I just give this to my wife?
Yeah, go ahead. Can you call us when you
Okay,
do it?
yeah.
We
Right.
want. We can just give them all
Cross
to
my
you.
name out, put hers on there.
No, we can just give them all to you.
When is that?
That way you'd have. She'd have 6. She'd have half dozen.
It'll work.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. I love her.
She's starting to get out
Literally
more.
right
She's
now.
doing good. She's doing really
I'm
good.
not able to work this out, but my answer is no.
It's just
She already picked
I
that
told her,
back.
I just now seen this.
It's so
I'll
good to
get
see
to you
her
as soon as
on
possible.
I mean, just,
I didn't see it till
what a
like,
that was a
before last
that was a horrible.
Yeah, I just kept ignoring it.
Wait, what is happening? So Ashley and Laura are talking to each other for years. And
Now something that's urgent, whatever, and they said,
and it was
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
It's like, yeah, your phone schemes out there.
It was awful.
It's really good.
So awful. I just was so
So much more
heartbroken.
reliable.
Yeah, you too.
text her.
Oh, I was so hurt.
Yeah. Like, I appreciate
You can feel this.
Yeah, it is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Dr. Moore, do we have anything for the first?
The first hearing.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, a motion to consider the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from Monday, January 13th.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Any questions?
And the work session, February 3rd.
Oh, and the work session
It's all in
on
there.
Yep.
February 3rd. Thank you. Mr. Price?
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Reddick?
Yes.
Mrs. Packard?
Yes. Next, we have the financial report of an Exhibit C. A motion to discuss and approve the financial report, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Second.
Mr. Fox? Mr. Price?
highlight the income tax collection at the end of January. Comparing that to the prior January, we are up about $85,000 for the quarter settlement, which is good news that that continues to grow a little bit. Also, a couple of larger differences within the forecast for the year. The property tax advance that was expected at the end of January was delayed because of an issue with the county auditor's office, so we're a little low for January, but
We'll
March
wash out in the,
will
oh, in March.
be a little high, so it'll catch back up.
Is there anything else that's trending one way or the other that's concerning?
I think we reported last month that medical claims are back in line. That continues so far this month. We are all caught up, I believe, with our reinsurance reimbursements at this point. So we're looking pretty good.
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 Maybe later in the year we'll do that.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, Ms. Price?
Mr. Reddick.
Yes.
Mr. Fox.
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Packard.
Yes. Moving on to then and now. Prior certification of funds was not obtained before the contract or order involving the expenditure of money was made as described. Fiscal officer may instead certify. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Mr. Price?
A couple from Hayner, a couple from, about 3 from the high school, and 1 from St. Pat's. Nothing major.
Okay.
A couple of those are just timing right at the month end, so.
Any questions? Okay. Ms. Price?
Mr. Reddick,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mrs. Packard.
Yes. Next, we have a resolution authorizing SD design documents and estimates. The adoption of the following resolution is recommended. Mr. Price, do I need to read the full resolution?
No,
Okay.
nope, that's fine.
Need a motion to discuss, please?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Ms.
As I
Price?
mentioned last month with that resolution that was approved, that there'd be several others coming forward as we move throughout finalizing each step of the design phase. And this is the next one on the docket with the SD design documents and estimates. And I believe a lot of that information was covered with our work session. So this is just making everything official.
Okay. Any questions?
No, not after that work session, so it was good to go over all that last week. Thanks.
Ms. Price?
Mr. Reddick,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Packard.
Yes. Okay. Ms. Piper, you get to give the good news.
I'll make a motion to approve the acceptance of donations.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Ms. Piper?
Yes, it's our favorite part of the agenda where we get to thank our community for the support of our staff, students, and programs. So you'll see a variety of donations there, from material donations of hat, gloves, all the way up to donations of thousands of dollars for our programs. So we appreciate each and every one of those, no matter how big or small. We'll put them to good use. And our February total is $9,330.22, and our year-to-date total is $136,799.89, which we appreciate.
Very generous community.
Very, very generous.
Ms. Price?
Mr. Reddick,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Packard.
Yes. Second, we have a resolution authorizing the special education model policies and procedures. This is a direction from the state for us to adopt these policies, correct?
Yeah,
Mr.
it's a new state law that requires us to either vote to adopt these or come up with our own. So
Yeah.
Motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Is there an exhibit that should be listed on here?
There was a link through Chris's.
I sent a
work
link in the
session.
board notes.
Did
So I
you
don't
send us
think we
weekly board
need an
notes?
exhibit here. Yeah.
If you look at this.
It's a model policies handbook that the department puts together every year. I put a link to that in Friday's board notes. So this is a new requirement enacted by Ohio law this year.
Okay. I think I looked at it, but just give me a second. Just
Is it
It
anything
was like a
different than how we,
54-page document.
does it change how we operate today or?
Nothing materially, no. I mean, there are minor changes from year to year, but all this is dictated by law, which ODU communicates what those policies are and provides us some forms that we use, those kinds of things. So nothing would materially change what we do.
is this that includes the bathroom bill that you
No,
sent out about?
no, this is a
Special education.
very particular set of policies that the Ohio Department of Education has put together that kind of guides processes, procedures for special education, those kinds of things.
Okay. Do we have that later on in that policy update later on in the meeting?
No, that will be probably in the March or April meeting. We haven't met with the rep yet. I shared some information for that upcoming. but
Yeah.
We'll vote to approve those later. So next month we'll have a first reading of those policies, and the following month we would have a board adoption.
Okay. All right.
That's
Thanks.
coming.
Any questions?
No question. No further questions. Thanks.
Anything else on the special education policies? Ms. Price?
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Reddick?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mrs. Packard?
Yes. Next, we have a resolution authorizing 2025-2026 membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association.
Motion approved.
Mr. Fox, thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick. Mr. Price?
Mr. Fox?
Well,
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
No, it's okay.
I meant, is there any discussion?
no, it's all just a normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
annual resolution, but one thing, we typically have the card to send back for you to sign tonight. They sent us the wrong card. I noticed that today, so we'll get one for you to sign. We have a couple months, so we're fine.
Any other discussion? Ms. Price?
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Reddick?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Packard?
Yes. Next, we have the approval of the Troy High School 2025-2026 plans for learning. A motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Reddick, Mrs. Davis. I know, I have some questions, just for clarification. Does anyone else have discussion also? Mr. Reddick, Mr. Fox? I just don't want to jump in front of you
Go
guys.
for it.
So do some of the programs that are being removed get replaced by another program?
Not necessarily. Typically, the majority of the removals that you're seeing this year are from years of not using those courses. We haven't offered them, and some of them, there were staff members who have been here 20 plus years and doesn't remember the last time. It was like it was just, we don't typically remove, but speech 3 and 4, like we've not offered that for such a long time. So those were a couple of those examples. However, there are a few in here that were removed because, like, for example, the on the third page of the updates, like the blue highlight packet, on the third page of that at the bottom, that that manufacturing dual enrollment Clark State CCP course, we no longer have the instructor. That was a UVCC instructor who is no longer teaching, so that course cannot be offered next year.
Okay.
So we did remove that because it cannot be offered as it stands. That's not to say that at some point we might not be able, we would maybe be able to offer some sort of CCP through that programming, but they have to post that position for the coming school year. And the likelihood of that person having that exact certification to teach that exact class is not likely. So, so they were we worked with the Career Center to discuss that, and so that's why that course was taken out. But in terms of speech 3, drama 3, news writing, those are courses that haven't been offered and currently aren't offered. We don't even have students signing up for those. So kind of talked with the guidance counselors and worked with the department chairs in that, and we felt that that was a perfect time to go ahead and take those out. Then American Literature 2 and British Literature, those two classes, that is the where we have combined that into a new comparative literature course. So just above those is the comparative literature. That's the entire section. That's a new. So what they have transitioned that in the previously we had taught American Literature 2 and British Literature as 2 different senior level courses that could be taken, and they would take them for the full year. They either take American Lit 2 or you take Brit Lit. We've had a lot of CCP added over the years, a lot of students increasing their CCP enrollment, which our teachers still teach in-house, but some do take it off campus. But with that increase in CCP, those American Lit 2 and Brit Lit numbers have decreased because like a lot of seniors, like I said, are taking CCP. Those who are not taking CCP English have to choose between those 2 courses. But that means that then there's singleton classes. And what Leah Hampshire is our department chair for English, and she has been working on this comparative literature course. So she said we can use our American Lit and our Brit Lit and combine them into one course where they're comparing those 2 literatures using the exact same, essentially curriculum or exact same novel sets and things, but just using them like a comparative set. And so, so they've been working on combining those. And what that does is that just means all seniors take that same course.
Okay.
And so that actually like helps with scheduling too, because then they're not singleton courses. So when a student wants just one course, it's only offered one period, it really dictates what they can take in other times. But if they have like, well, I could take a second or fifth, then that opens their schedule up to have some flexibility. So anyhow, they're very excited about that comparative part. But again, that won't involve any new sets of reading or curriculum or anything. They're just using that like a combined comparative class.
Thank you.
I noticed a lot of Edison classes are highlighted as weighted classes. This is a change that they weren't weighted previously,
so the
or
blue is what's new. I've just as adopted over the years. I don't know when that started, but in the actual like plans for learning document, that every weighted course has always been highlighted yellow in here for years.
Okay.
So yellow is not new. Blue is new. So if it's highlighted as yellow, that's just part of the plans for learning. It's always, so every single course that's weighted has always had a highlight of yellow in the plans for learning.
down at the end? Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's in there. Chris gave us a summary in email.
So some courses are not CCP, but still weighted. You know, our honors courses and Spanish 4, and Latin 4, things like that.
How's our numbers? So the ones that are Edison, are those students are either going up to Edison or taking online through Edison? They're not taking, our teachers don't teach an Edison class, is that true?
We do.
We do.
So we partner for Edison. We partner with Edison for almost all of our CCP that is taught here. Any course that you're seeing in this Plans for Learning are the courses taught on our campus here by our teachers.
Oh.
We do not list the Edison courses that they could take through Edison on their own. They just use their course catalog for scheduling that. We don't include that, their catalog in ours. So everything that you see in here that says like that little signet that has the Edison next to it, those are all courses taught here on campus by our teachers that
They-
they get Edison credit for.
Okay.
Business classes, English classes, math classes. Science, our chem and our bio CCP classes, those are through Indiana University. Everything else is through Edison.
Okay. So on those ones that our teachers are teaching for Edison, are they paid any differently for those teaching those classes or anything like that? No.
No, they have to be certified through Edison though. We have to send them their transcripts.
Yeah.
And they have to certify that they've had 18 credit hours in their field, not just like masters in technology or masters in education, like it has to be in their field. So I just think it's pretty remarkable to think about the number of teachers that we have teaching CCP classes. That means how much time they've spent in their field of study outside of the traditional bachelor's work for their, so it's a lot of work.
So they don't get any additional pay. We do give them one additional day for grading purposes because those courses can be a little more demanding. So that's an arrangement that we worked out years ago with those teachers, kind of an incentive because it's college class. So it's writing needs more work outside, even the reporting of the grades to the university. They have to take care of all of that because the students receive a transcript from Edison or Indiana.
Okay.
It's a huge benefit, the number of in this building classes that our students get. I mean, I can speak personally, like, for my son, the number of CCP credits he's been able to get while not having to leave campus and still be a part of the Troy High School community. It's a huge benefit to our students.
Yeah. I had to drive to Edison.
Pardon?
I had to drive to Edison.
So did I, from Brussels.
Uphill both ways.
Yeah, that's right.
In the snow.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions on
Mr. Price?
Mr. Reddick,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Fox,
Yes.
Mrs. Packard.
Yes. We have a Troy High School marching band trip to Indianapolis, Indiana for November of 2025. I guess we're planning ahead. Really well done. Do you have a motion?
Motion approved.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Second.
And thank you, Mrs. Davis. Mrs. Venema?
Yeah. So we are really proud of the success that our marching band has had through the OMEA organization, which is great. But we're also wanting to increase the exposure and the experience that our students have, and so we would like to take them for a performance in the Music for All Bands of America circuit. They host their end-of-season event called Grand Nationals in Indianapolis, Indiana. So what this will do is it will allow our students to perform in Lucas Oil Stadium, which is an incredible venue. And also we'll let them watch bands from around the country, if not around the world, and really see how marching band and how music education is done in different parts, from really small groups to really large groups, and really just kind of get an appreciation and some education about how this activity is done.
Thank you.
It is a day trip. It will be either the 13th or the 14th. It's a prelims situation, so we won't know what our performance time is, but it will be one of those 2 days. We're not going to stay overnight for that. So that's why the schedule reads the way it is.
Understood. Any questions?
So it's not a competition?
It is a
It
competition.
is a competition.
Yeah.
So is there a chance for another trip if it's prelims?
So we're very proud of our students. However, we are probably not
Okay.
on that level.
That's fair.
There is a semifinals and then a finals that is held the rest of the weekend, but we're happy to be there. We're going to do our best and put on a good show, but we don't expect to advance past this
Okay.
performance.
There'll still be plenty of pictures from the preliminary.
And it goes from like 2 days down to the top 30 bands in the country. So it goes from around 200 and some down to 30. So to go to prelims is a very small percentage. So we are not alone in that.
Anything else? Mr. Price?
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Reddick?
Yes.
Mrs. Packard?
Yes. Next, we have the Troy Junior High 8th grade trip to DC. They'll be traveling in May. A motion?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Mr. Piper?
They've taken this trip for a number of years now. They're veterans and pretty good at it. Happy to answer any questions you might have, but I think it's a great experience for the kids and one they typically enjoy very much and behave very well for, and it's a good experience.
At this point, I see just 8th grade mentioned. In the past years, we've mentioned 9th grade. Was that just due to it switching from 6th grade and not all the students having a chance? And is it now just only 8th graders?
Yes, there was 9th grade included one year because we had to cancel the trip due to COVID. Yeah, so
Okay.
this is just 8th grade.
Just all 8th grade. Okay. Well, appreciate the pictures and the Facebook post and things like that. It's always, as with all the stuff, it's neat to watch them in this one too.
What percentage of kids go?
Oh, I could give you a good guess, and I'm going to ask Dr. Moore to guess first. He probably has a little more inside knowledge this year.
I would need to confirm to feel really good about my response, but I think we're around half or a little under half.
I'd say the same, around half. I mean, the trip it's not cheap.
Right.
They do a lot of fundraising. I know they work to keep the cost down, but it's not a cheap trip.
Right.
We wish it were more. As someone who has chaperoned that trip before, not here, but before, it is a great trip. But
Well, I believe for this coming year, they had to shorten the trip just to keep the cost at a reasonable rate. Because the cost of travel.
So it didn't used to be a longer trip, or has it always been 4 nights?
Just shorten it down.
it shortened down
I
a little bit.
thought it seemed odd. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Price?
Mr. Reddick?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mrs. Packard?
Yes. Okay, personnel items.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Mr. Dillon.
So fairly light agenda tonight. We're kind of in that season of the year where we're starting to have people notify us that they're going to retire at the end of the year. So that list is longer than the people that we're hiring because we're going to gear up for the hiring season. So I just wanted to point out a few here. A lot of excellent people that have done great things here in the district. Between Linda Berkey, Marla Gooden, Lisa Johnson, and Dave Palmer, we've got 85 years of experience in the district. So 28, 17, and 12 would be those four. So Linda's done a fantastic job out at Concord as the admin assistant, has managed that big building for a number of years by herself. Marla's been driving the school bus for 28 years. Anybody that can drive a school bus for 28 years, I'm going to give her a clock, and that won't do it justice. So she's driven my own kids. She's driven lots of kids. She's just been fantastic. Always has a smile on her face. She waves to me every single morning. She's just great. Elisa's done a fantastic job there at the junior high's food service. And then last but not least, Dave Palmer, our athletic director. He's done great things here in the last 12 years. So I'm excited for him to be able to move on to other things and free up his time. It's a pretty busy job to be the athletic director of a large high school. So look forward to whatever is next for him. But that's kind of the highlights of tonight's personnel.
For the athletic director, do we have an opportunity to hire someone in May or early June and have a crossover time of a couple months there?
So we're going to post that position soon, and the goal would be to have, but we'll talk to whoever the successful candidate is. We'd like to have somebody this spring in terms of we know who it is, they know who it is, and then if need be, maybe give them some extended days or something along those lines so that there is some of that crossover. The nice thing with Dave's position is he's here till the end of July, so we've got a little bit of time there to work with that, whoever our next athletic director is.
Mr. Price?
Mr. Reddick?
Yes.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Packard?
Yes. So that concludes the items that are on our agenda. We do have 2 guests this evening. Dr. Morney? Okay. It's for the second hearing of the public, and these are for items that are not on our agenda. Mr. Bush, you've requested to go first.
Just tell him to state his name.
Can you please,
Address.
sorry, can you please state your name and address?
Andrew Bush, 2665 Fieldstone Court here in Troy, Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
So I've got some questions pertaining to, or some statements to be made pertaining to the Bullying and Aggressive Behavior Act here at Troy City Schools and what our policy is and the form leading up to it. So give me a second. I'll pull up my notes here.
I mean, it's 3 minutes, but
Oh, that's not very long.
that's not a big deal. Just
There's
like
been multiple
So it doesn't
incidents
get out of
recently in
hand.
the Concord School that have come to my attention. One of those incidents was a toy gun brought into school, and that student was suspended for 3 days. Upon return from that school, made a threat to another student involving a gun, insinuating gun violence. Again, a 3-day suspension was given, and that student was allowed to return within the same week of making that threat and returning from a previous suspension, allowed back in school the same week. So it led me to do some digging, and I'd just like to begin by stating each of the student handbooks only contain 3 sentences in regards to Ohio Revised Code, section 3313.666. District policy prohibiting harassment, intimidation, and bullying required. It is disappointing to see that there is no mention in the student handbooks of the online bullying reporting link, nor was there reference to the actual district policy 5517, which was last updated in September of 2019. In light of a recent situation at Concord with a student bringing a fake gun to school and threatening to shoot another student, I wanted to express my concern that there seems to be a lack of clarification in how behavior incidences are recorded in this district, as well as how behavior coincides with the discipline policy. I'm always appreciative of the cooperation of the staff and administration and believe there is a need for more cohesive method of overall behavior reporting and recording. In my experience as a parent, student behavior issues will go undocumented if they seem to be minor and can be easily resolved. As we know, a case of harassment requires that a student suffers from a threat on multiple instances from an accused bully, so without a paper trail of past minor behaviors, it makes bullying difficult to prove, report, and determine disciplinary actions. I've spoken to the families whose children were involved in negative situations with the child who brought the fake gun to school. Even though the school was aware of the child having issues with others, I do not believe the accumulation of these other situations impact the disciplinary outcome. This is why I feel that this district needs a consistent method to document all behavioral issues, small and large. Behavior situations are discussed over phone calls, emails, sometimes face-to-face, but I do not believe that all of these behaviors are being documented. I'm incorrect, and every single behavior incident is being documented. I would ask that the district clarify the process clearly with its families. I understand that there are detailed procedures in place for reporting bullying and harassment, but without evidence of prior incidences, it is difficult to prove and in turn issue the appropriate disciplinary action. Unfortunately, many parents in this district do not know how to appropriately handle communication with the schools when a behavioral incident occurs. With all due respect, parents are inundated with communication from schools, and I would venture to say most parents are unaware of how you can find the district policies on the website, or there is a bullying incident report link available. I want our parents to feel confident in the district's procedures. I want the procedures for harassment, bullying, and intimidation to be more concise, as well as to get a better understanding of how that applies to the disciplinary system. I would also like to see more clarity in the discipline procedure and how types of disciplines are determined. I understand many times this is on a case-by-case basis, but I believe that there can be more clarity in this district's discipline policy as well. Too often I hear about bullying in our schools, and as a coach and a mentor inside the community that spends time with a lot of these kids, primarily the ones at Concord Elementary, I feel it's a shame to have the word mentioned again and again in regards to the district. I want the parents of the district to feel confident in the policies and administration, knowing that they can send their children to a place that prioritizes being proactive, keeping these kids safe from bullying, safe from harassment, and safe from being inundated by others. I have a personal tie to some of this, but it's more about policy reform. How do we get information out to the parents and families and keep kids and faculty safe? In my own instance, I can tell you that some policies were put in and that the school itself did a fantastic job. I take my hat off to Mr. Hayden at Concord Elementary, did a fantastic job handling things. You'll never hear a different statement from me on that. I don't believe that the full case file for this child was taken into consideration, and I don't feel that the appropriate disciplinary action was given in terms of how those other incidents took place and the severity of the issue that was at hand, and especially coming off of one suspension and getting the same exact suspension over again when obviously the first punishment didn't help change the behavior. So that is how I feel about it. I know there's a semi-annual report that's supposed to be published. I don't know that it has been published, and if so, I would like for mass communication to go out for where the semi-annual report is published and the last time it was updated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Thank you for looking out for our students. Mr. Piper, do you want to go first?
Sorry?
Do you have anything?
The semi-annual report was last updated last week. It's on the website. If you just go to the website and search bullying report, you'll see it. Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
And I think you've explained previously the definition of bullying is very specific on what gets reported on there. Can you just maybe refresh us a little bit? Is a threat, a verbal threat, kind of like maybe was made in this situation, would that count as bullying and show up on that report based on the definition?
It in and of itself, no. Bullying and harassment is defined by the Ohio Department of Education. I think some of the components of it he mentioned in his talk there has to happen over time, multiple incidents. So the challenge is what has transpired. It's not a very clear-cut line for any administrator to say the third offense is bullying or the fourth offense is bullying. It's a bit gray. It's defined, but it's a bit gray. So any building administrator would have to look at the history of reports, the severity of those, to determine if it's crossed the threshold for bullying.
Can you speak to the documentation question that Mr. Bush had about when does it get documented? Is there consistency across the district?
Yeah. I believe there is to some degree at least. We do have reporting systems for our schools, like we have the name of it just escaped me. Where do you guys? Public School Works. Public School Works, we use that tool to document behavioral reports. Now, having been a principal, I will tell you that not every conversation as you walk around a school building with a child and you see something in the moment gets documented, but typically things that are referred to a principal's office would be documented in Public School Works. So I'm not sure in this case how many or if at all there have been documented cases or incidents.
That's probably not public. Is it public information? What gets documented in there? Not because it's based on
it's student privacy.
Yeah.
When I mentioned instances, and you talk about incidents with the child for bullying, it's instances between the same two parties, correct? The bullying has to be between party A and party B. Those have to be multiple instances just between A and B, not party A with B, C, D, E, F. It is just instances between party A and party B in terms of bullying. Not that that child or student has had issues with B, C, D, E, F. One incident with each. It has to be multiple incidences between A and B, correct?
So I'm going to turn to the board. This is a board meeting. We don't typically do question and answer, but I'm happy to answer the question. I'm happy to talk outside of the meeting. What would the board prefer?
If it's a succinct answer, I think it's a fair.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to answer. If it's a succinct answer, I think it's fair to answer.
Okay. Sorry, I just had to ask because it's the board. So it can be both, either or. I mean, if they're I say every. So as a person walks around a school and sees a child doing something in the moment on a playground, ideally every interaction would be documented. Realistically, though, probably not all are. So it's both. With a particular student who is doing the bullying, the principal would look at the incidents with that student and others, or an individual, or all the above. It just really depends on the situation.
Thank you.
We also have another person that wanted to speak, Amanda Gibson.
I'm here just to ask for questions, clarification, and to provide some information to the school board.
Can you please state your name and address?
Amanda Gibson, 532 West Franklin Street.
Thank you.
The toy fake gun situation was brought to my house by high school kids shortly after all this transpired, because obviously younger siblings conversation happens. And I went to the Troy Police Department to acquire photos of said toy gun. My question for the school board is, to me, a toy gun is very apparent that it's a toy gun. I'm not very well versed in firearms, but a toy gun is a toy gun. This gun that was brought to Concord Elementary was questioned by several adults as to whether it was truly a toy gun. In this report, it also states Mr. Piper wanted a second opinion to confirm that it was a toy gun. So I'm concerned about the leniency of Troy City Schools policy where gun violence is concerned, because if a child can bring in a toy gun to school and this can fly, what else is allowed to fly? I really want the school board to have this so you guys can see the factual information and not be persuaded to believe that this was a keychain toy gun. Would you care to give that to me, please? I don't need that back. Thank you. Yep. So I would just ask that we review all of our policies, our communication. I personally have a high school kid. I get correspondence with Mrs. Dietrich in that building very often. Announcements, things that are important, things that aren't important. I think that at the very least, all of the Concord family should have been made aware of that. I will also tell you that when it was brought to my attention, I asked in the mock group, and I had several teachers from that building, as well as someone from the bus department, reach out to me and say, thank you for posting that, because we were not made aware of any violence or that we needed to be alert to anything, and we're afraid. So that's why I'm here, because there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way, and there's no room for any violence in schools, if you ask me. Yes, those were teachers in that building that were not notified.
Are you two in correlation, you two, together talking about the same instances?
Yep.
Okay. Just making sure we weren't talking about two separate incidences. Okay.
Mr. Bradbury, did we notify, was there a mass notification to the families of Concord?
I don't believe so, no.
Is it, I guess, when do we typically make those type of an issue
Yeah.
gets notified, and when does an issue not get notified?
Fortunately, it's not typical. There is no typical. It's a judgment call. I would say if the object is going to create some panic or cause for alarm, that would be the case. Yes,
We would
notify.
We would notify.
Yeah.
That would not warrant that for school.
Who makes that call?
Building principal. I mean, usually if something like that happens, they're reaching out to central office as well.
To alert central office, this has happened in our
Yeah.
building? Okay.
There's nothing in the handbook that says we all have to be notified under the gun violence pages. But I'm with them. At least if parents weren't notified, I would expect that the rest of the Concord teachers at least be notified. I mean, they don't need to speak on the student or their name or, bring it outside of the school, but you would think parents.
We will review.
I'd be happy to talk with anybody who wants to give us a call and talk more about it. I mean,
But the policy that, I guess, is your concern about the safety, or is it the policy itself?
The policies itself, for the safety of our kids.
What policy numbers are you referring to? I think you stated some policies, Mr. And you were I'm sorry, you were talking, I couldn't hear everything.
55 seconds ago on will be the other forms of address behavior, is that the one you're supposed to
This is the Ohio Revised Code, section 3313.666, which is the district policy prohibiting harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Which is referenced in our policy.
Okay.
The one that I referenced, which is on page 8 of the handbook, it's just under the gun violence. Because I was wondering, since it was the same occurrence, I saw the superintendent can increase or decrease the days. And there's no, that's what I looked there for, to see if there's anything that says whoever needs to be notified. But there was not. But I also don't know, in this situation, what, obviously it's concerning.
So I guess I'm asking, in a situation like this, you would like the entire,
I'm waiting for the board docs to load.
Okay. I'll go back to Mr. Bush. You would like for the entire, that school to be notified that this happened?
I would like at least for the grade or class, right? If that toy, weapon, whatever we want to classify it as, comes into that, my child's classroom, and a student is showing it to multiple parties, and that gets back out into the community, that there was a toy gun in that building. The building is one thing. I would at least think that those, that their child saw it and were in the same exact classroom with that, would be notified that, hey, this was brought to our attention. It took multiple teachers, took a second opinion from a firearms specialist to identify this was a toy. I would think that that class and those that had seen the gun firsthand would be notified. My child was not wanting to see it firsthand.
So when you say class, are you stating that classroom or the entire grade?
At a bare minimum, the class.
I mean, my son found out, and he's in first grade.
So I guess our point is it gets out there, right? Whether you're in the class, in the grade, or in the building.
Absolutely.
It's there. So my stance would be that, yes, we notify everybody in the school building because everybody is at threat. And as we're talking about it, right, I mean, I think, I told you that the school did a fantastic job of trying to address it, but there's so many details that are left open-ended. They're going to do a bag check. Does that child ride the bus? When's the bag check going to take place? Who's going to perform it? What if that person's not there that day? There's some details missing that in order to feel that every child is safe in that school, I would need some more details about how they're going to handle that situation, right? You know, when you say that you're going to keep this child separated from another child or multiple other child that have incidents with him, how many feet are we going to keep them separated by? Again, what administrators, what teachers are tasked with that? Because my issue is we all send our kids to school to be safe. Somebody's got to guarantee me that my child and every child in there is 100% safe. And if we know there's a known occurrence of multiple incidents of a kid bringing a toy gun and threatening another child with gun violence, I would think that we want to put that out there. We want to let the grade, the class, the building, the school system know that these things are happening, and we're addressing them, and we're taking the disciplinary action necessary to change that behavior. So my main question in all this is, how do we reform the policy? What is the next step? Is it another board meeting? Do we have to put it on the agenda? I would really like some guidance from the board. How do we get involved in help? I think that's the main thing. If parents want to help, how do we get involved and help and stop this from potentially happening to somebody else? So that's what we're here for.
Or certainly just to make sure that we're doing everything absolutely possible to keep guns out of our school. I mean, all you have to do is a quick Google search. There's a huge issue federally with gun violence in schools, and I pride myself on my kids going to Troy City schools because we're great here. I will shout that from the rooftops, and I came from Piqua, I graduated from Piqua, I'll still tell you, Troy's better. We're great here. But I want to know that every single person involved, from the top to the bottom, truly has the best for our district in mind and is doing everything possible for all of our kids, all of our admin, our lunch ladies, our bus drivers, everyone across the board. And with all due respect, I was contacted by someone outside of the district that let me know that there has been bullying issues in the past that haven't been taken seriously by our superintendent, and that even made me more afraid to know what happened prior to him coming. So I just want to know that these kids and these teachers and these people that I spend every day caring about are really being protected and cared for, and that every policy that can be in place is in place to be sure that every kid in our district is safe. And if there's someone coming in that isn't part of that safety plan, then maybe Troy City Schools isn't for them. Maybe we have to find this child or children that are causing problems an alternative education opportunity. But we have to protect ours here, right? Or at least have a plan in place that we can confidently say, we're gonna get behind this and we believe in this.
Well, I think in reference to what you're talking about, like setting out district information, we have to be careful about that because there's laws in place where you can't, I mean, privacy laws to protect that student.
Yeah, we can't talk publicly about student discipline.
Yeah.
By
No
means-
one's asking.
Yeah, by no means, we haven't mentioned any names, we're not here.
I just wanted you to understand that. Like, we can't get into, like, a sending out a district notification, say, this child did this. There's privacy laws
I
there.
think your request is an incident happened. Your request is an incident happened.
Yes,
This happened at
like
your,
you're
this
saying.
happened at your child's school today. This is how it's being addressed. That's your question.
There was multiples, and so when we talk about the incidents, right, a lot of what I said in that speech is how do we tie those incidents together? What I was told is these are two isolated incidents. They are not to be looked at together for disciplinary action, okay? Student A brought in this weapon, served his suspension. This is a completely separate incident for the threat toward another student. Therefore, it will be evaluated as a separate incident. It was deemed to be a low threat, and therefore was given another 3-day suspension. So I don't want you to think that I didn't have conversation with the building and the administration and Mr. Piper himself. We have, and they've explained everything they can to me. So, and I believe they've done what maybe the policy allows them to do. Therefore, I think the policy needs to change. That's where I'm at. I don't believe those should be separate incidents. I don't believe that a kid bringing a gun into a building, a toy gun into a building, and the day he returns from a suspension, threatens another child about shooting them, those can't be separate incidents. And if we open that file and we find that there are other acts of aggressive behavior, harassment, bullying, or violence, those have to be looked at when you look at the punishment for the latest incident. That would be my biggest point in all this, is I don't believe our policy allows for that, and if it does, that policy is not being followed.
Understood. So as we talk about policies as a board, that's something that we have to review as a board. And
The student handbooks.
the student handbooks, there's a cycle for this, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's something that we can take back and discuss further. Is that
So
the?
if I may, I think at the heart of this matter, and I think we're talking about two related but different things. One is the bullying procedures, processes, discipline, all of that. The other is this particular item that was found this young man had in school. So in the student handbook, as was alluded to earlier, it says, where is it? As defined by Ohio law and for purposes of this policy, an object that is indistinguishable from a firearm. Indistinguishable from a firearm means an object made, constructed, or altered so that to a reasonable person without specialized training in firearms, the object appears to be a firearm. Again, for context, I've seen some of the pictures, and I think some of the pictures are difficult to provide some scale and understanding. Those are scales we're not that familiar with. I'm not sure where they came from. But for scale, this thing measured 2 inches by 1.5 inches. That was the size of it. So did it look like a firearm? Yes, but it's extraordinarily small. You can't get your finger into the trigger part of it. So I think size is important here. I don't think a reasonable person would say that is a firearm. It's a judgment call.
Would anyone care to read the report from Troy PD?
Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's down.
Thank you for sharing this report.
You're welcome.
I haven't
That's what I
seen
wanted you to see.
I haven't seen all the pictures, but I'll say I'm a firearm owner myself, handgun owner, and okay, first picture I look at and I see the scale. Okay, super small, fits in the palm of your hand. Probably not a gun, but also I don't expect that everyone who isn't a firearm owner or all the staff or other students who may see it would know that that's too small to be a real gun. But then when I saw these other pictures of how this toy comes apart, it looks, this looks like a real gun, that it comes apart and then there's a magazine and there's bullets
And a carrying case.
and a carrying case that a gun comes in. Like, it blew my mind that it looks this real, and this is That I would.
That it was a replica gun today, not a toy gun.
Yeah, the pictures surprised me a lot, and I
think that's
I can't. To me, it looks like it could be a real firearm, and it's scary. And
It's scary. Thank you.
I did. So, I mean, the issue happened. We responded, but in my opinion, these pictures, maybe there should have been more of a response in this situation. It's yeah.
Did you talk to Mr. Piper? He had me to review this personnel file after he read it, right?
It was under review, Mr. Hake was doing a review, so I'm not here to cast stones at anybody. I want to understand what the policy is, and when we read the policy, is anything that is deemed to potentially be a weapon, right? And you need to be able to tell that it's not. I think you can tell by looking at those pictures, if I'm an 11-year-old child, I don't know that's not a gun. It's got an ejectable magazine with bullets in it. The slide can cock and eject a bullet. I mean, I've read about the toy, the replica, whatever we want to call it, right? My concern is that if that's not deemed, after multiple teachers looked at it, a resource officer was then requested to call in for a second opinion from a firearms specialist.
Yes.
And you're telling me it wasn't deemed a threat? That seems like a lot of professional people to bring in, a lot of adults and professional people to bring in, that multiple children had already seen this toy. And you mean to tell me they're going to be able to distinguish when the adults and the resource officer couldn't distinguish without getting a second opinion and without hours of deliberation? To me, that's where the policy, even though it may be gray and vague, if that gets through, what else gets through? If that gets through, policy needs change. Verbiage needs change. That's my stance. And I know this is probably going longer than anybody wanted it to go, but I myself have firearms. They stay in a gun safe, right? They have home defense bullets in them. We take the right precautions as firearm owners to educate and protect those in our house, because that's what they're for, right? The last thing I want is kids exposed to that don't have that training are fearful of it, or if he feels that's okay to bring in, we need to address that and make sure that the policy clearly states for every parent that that's not acceptable. No matter what you're teaching at home, that piece of toy is not warranted in our schools. And so to me, that's where the policy has to come into play, right? How do we change this? Because I don't feel that should be brought in. If that gets in, what else is getting in? That's the policy that I want to address.
So I think I really appreciate and thank you for giving us all of the context that you have. I'm going to apologize right now. We're not going to have an answer for you today.
We didn't expect you to.
Please know that it is. So we have to review our policies as well. Please, if you have input, please share it with us, share it with Mr. Piper, share it with Dr. Moore. Pardon me.
Okay, yes. We are out of time for this, but yeah, like as she said, we're gonna have to review policies, look at them, see what's more specific, see exactly what's going on. We have to talk to Mr. Piper and see exactly what was implemented as far as the punishment, if that was according to policy and things like that. But we will have a discussion about it.
When you say we
And
we can reach out, is there a forum to best do that, an email?
Please email us. You have Mr. Piper's email address. All of our email addresses are on the school website.
Should
Mr.
be.
Fong, I don't know if he's in here.
Yeah.
They're all on the website to reach out to us. If you have something to say, please call us. Please email us. Please continue to attend meetings.
I would say, should we continue to attend moving forward in regard to this issue?
I don't want to discourage you from attending,
Okay.
but I also will tell you, I don't know that we'd have an update next month.
Sure.
And that's not in a flippant way,
No, absolutely.
but
We can check in weekly.
you are more than welcome to check
You
in.
have an update, and when that policy is up for,
So there's usually a reading, right? Anytime that there's a policy change.
For which policy? Well, yes,
Any
the answer,
policy.
for board policy, there are updates as legally necessary. Yes.
And those are made to the public?
Now, those are also board policies that you can review any policy at any time. Okay? So there's two policies we've talked about. Well, there's two board policies that pertain, one of which we've not spoken tonight. There is a policy about weapons in schools, and there's another policy about bullying. Then, also, there's student handbooks that get revised and presented and approved typically every summer. So it depends on what we're talking about. I think we're using the word policy broadly. A lot of this is covered in the student handbook.
I would say if you reach out with an email outlining your concerns, we'll provide an update when we have one for you, certainly.
Yeah, I think bullet points would be better. Not that your presentation wasn't, but it was 5.5 minutes, so it was a lot to take in, and I kind of got lost in the middle, honestly. And then, Amanda spoke also, yes, and so I was a little convoluted as to specifically what we were honing in on, and then
Well, and we only had just a few minutes, we were more.
Yeah.
Like you.
so bullet points
But now that
probably.
we know we can email the board, that's great.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to.
Thank you guys for your time today
Thank
and
you
for
also.
listening and for caring. I think that as parents, sometimes we feel like things fall on deaf ears, and I definitely don't feel as though things fell on deaf ears with the four of you tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
I just want to say, when you email us, we have to be careful on having a group discussion and an email response back, because that's against the sunshine laws
Yes.
to have those type of conversations. So even if you email all of us, which is appropriate, expect the response either from the board president or Mr. Piper. But we, like, Teresa can't say something, I can't chime in with another email, Ben add in, and all of a sudden then we're
Can't
violating.
deliberate and.
We're violating
Yeah.
the
We can't
sunshine
collaborate
laws.
in
so-
writing on email. That
Yeah.
breaks laws.
So, if you don't get a response from all of us, it doesn't mean we don't care. We've just kind of have those laws that we have to abide by as well.
We appreciate the cooperation.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, so moved.
Second. Ms. Fox
Levi.
first, Mrs. Davis second.
Mr. Fox?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Reddick?
My notes.
Yes.
Mrs. Packard?
Yes.